What challenges did you have growing up or have you faced as a Black male who decided they wanted to dance professionally?
Why do you think dance gets stereotyped?
What would you say to like a parent who was wondering if they should put their kid in dance?
What's the biggest issue when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
Welcome back to season 5 of Beyond the Steps, presented by Apollo Performance and Turning Point Dance Creations. I'm Bree Zabrowski, co founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, here with my fabulous friend and co host, Melissa McDaniel Grisham. Welcome, friend. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
Beyond the Steps, for those of you that don't know, is a weekly video series available on Facebook and YouTube. And each and every Friday, we are joined by a very special guest and ask one question under the umbrella of health and wellness for performance athletes and have meaningful conversations and shared perspective and evidence-based research. It's meant to be thought-provoking, because when you know better, you do better. And so we're going to have conversations that kind of make you think a little bit. That's the point about what we're doing today. We're talking about diversity at dance conventions. Are we checking boxes? Are we just checking the boxes? Melissa, tell everybody who we have with us today. I'm so excited to have him back.
Yes, the last time you weren't able to be here for Terrell, but Terrell Mitchell is a professional dancer, teacher, and choreographer with the BA in dance. He has set works on professional dance companies, collegiate dance teams, and studio teams across the country. You can find Terrell touring the country and sharing his passion for dance as an administrative director and faculty member on Dupree Dance Convention, and he is represented by Go To Talent Agency. Terrell, welcome back.
Hello, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be back.
Yes, we're so excited to have you back. We're doing something a little bit different this season in the season 5 glow up for our audience, and we want to have our audience get to know you and have some fun before we dive in. So, we have some quick fire questions. We're looking for one word, one sentence max answers, and we want to get through as many of these as we can as fast
No
as
pressure.
no pressure. Just, the first thing off the top of your head, go for it. You
Got
ready?
it. I'm ready.
All right. Which dancer do you admire most?
My assistant, Aiden Aloma.
Why did you start dancing?
My mom ran a daycare center where the dance studio was inside, and she was like, "Let me just put him over there."
What is the most overused competition dance song?
I would say my strongest suit, or I don't like to show off.
What is the worst dance craze of all time?
Whatever this thing is, I'm not hip to keep up with the title.
Top 5 items in your dance bag that are a must have for a convention weekend. And hint, hint, one of them should be Apollo socks.
Absolutely. Apollo socks, tap shoes, ballet shoes, jazz shoes, and if you're ballroom trained, ballroom shoes.
I love that you named the shoes.
It has to be every shoe. We're missing that. We're missing.
No water, no snacks, just shoes.
It's a conversation that happens way too often.
Thank you, Terrell. That was awesome. Thank you for doing that. Good sport. We are going to dive right in because this is a big conversation that we're having today when we're talking about diversity in the convention space. What challenges did you have growing up or have you faced as a Black male who decided they wanted to dance professionally?
I will say that in my younger age, I didn't realize the challenges until I got older. But my main one would be resources. And that could not necessarily be financial resources, but information, access to it. I wasn't always able to be in the same room as people who could obtain that information, whether it just be knowing that an event is happening or financially affording that. So I would say resources is the biggest challenge that I faced. And just knowing that, like, where to go, when to go, is that happening? Am I able to do that? And so that was, I think, the biggest. And a lot of that has to do, where I came from, where I trained, and that demographic is a little weaker. But yeah, that would be my biggest challenge.
How did having those challenges shape how you lead now in the dance convention space? Have you addressed your own challenges to help others overcome the same, or how have you handled all of that?
I developed this, what I would call spoon feeding. I overindulge with information because I want my students to be overwhelmed with the information versus being overwhelmed because they're lacking the information. And so I will go above and beyond not just from a technical and educational standpoint, but from a resource of like, this audition is happening, this would benefit you, this summer intensive, this winter intensive, whatever this additional class is. Sometimes they don't know.
I will say this about you. I followed you for a long time. I think you're just you're one of those people that seems really genuine and really passionate about what you do and the people you connect with. And just even like your social media and the way you contribute in threads, like, you're funny and you're not, you don't take yourself too seriously. You're hilarious, but you also seem to have a really, close bond with your students, and you really just like kind of pour information and that passion into the way that you teach, whether it be in a room of hundreds of kids or one student. Like, I really have admired that about you for a long time. So I definitely, like, I don't know you personally, but we've worked with you for a long time on Apollo side as friends and partners, and then also just following your career as an educator. It comes off like I mean, you rarely see that, so that's wonderful to see.
Thank you. I always say I'm not for everyone, but I am for a lot of people.
I'm like, I see it all the time. I'm like, he is my people. I just like the humor. It's the sarcasm a little bit sometimes. I love it so much.
I want to talk about, why do you think dance gets stereotyped as being for girls?
I would say like way back classical, just the elements of tradition, dancers, male dancers.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling thing. Like, if you're catering to female dancers, then you're gonna get more female dancers. But if you cater to the male population who might be wanting, or male presenting population who might want to dance, then you could have more of that.
You see the changes now. It's still, again, a lot of work to do, but like, it's hard. It was hard for me going into a class with all pink walls and tutus and ballet shoes and all of this. I was just like, this isn't. I will partake for sure, but like, what is neutral? And that was never a conversation for my generation growing up. And now it's like, oh, I go into some dance studios and I'm like, this is a very neutral space. And you can still create, ballerinas who want to be these beautiful, princesses and stuff, but it gives space for people to be other things within the dance aspect as well.
So do you think creating those neutral spaces, like we were talking about, is one of the biggest steps toward changing that stereotype of being for girls? Is it creating a more
I think in addition to creating the physical space, the mindset has to change. It absolutely does. And that's a constant work on my part as well, because choreographically, if I want something feminine, I will say I want this to be feminine. Like, it doesn't matter what you identify with, because in my mind I'm like, this is just the performance. I'm not asking you to change who you are. This is a performance. I want this to be a little bit more masculine. I want my students to know that those adjectives can still be used appropriately. Like, if I'm saying I want this masculine, I'm not saying you're masculine. I want you to act this way in this combination, because
And you would say that to a girl
absolutely.
or a boy. It doesn't
I would
matter who
I
you're.
would tell a boy, if I want this to be a little bit more feminine, I would say I want this to be a little bit more feminine. Now, you do have to create space if they're not comfortable to portray that. And what I do is I remind, this is performance. This is not your personality. This is a performance. And I train a lot of pre-professional focused dancers. So that mindset of like, no, I need you to get this idea in case someone's hiring specifically that, and you have all of the skill sets, but you're not willing to perform in this way.
very interesting. We had Tony DeLelli on before. He's been in Fosse Revival, and he just got another show. I wish I could remember off the top of my head. But I've judged with him plenty of times. He speaks about, the feminine quality. Feminine is a quality, a movement quality. It's not, I'm not talking about it as a gender identity when I'm speaking to you from a choreography standpoint. And he says, I often liken it to animals, like feminine qualities in the movement of a cat versus masculine qualities in the movement of some other. Like, he loves to kind of make that, to kind of ease the transition or make it more relatable to everybody who's in the room. I love the idea of being able to ask all dancers to embody those qualities, not necessarily the identity. Those things are different.
Terrell, what would you say to like a parent who was wondering if they should put their kid in dance?
Support them. Support them when it gets hard and they ask you all of the hard questions. Support them when they come home and say, someone said this about me, someone's bullying me or this. The best thing for me was my entire family supported every aspect of dance, from it being just, fun and it's, no big deal at the age of 3 to, oh, now, he's really taking this seriously. And I mean, I quit for a year because of bullying, and the support that I had with that within my family was the very reason I went back, because it's like this is a part of your soul, and now we have to learn how to deal with this. And my family helping me create the tough skin was through conversations, and and I just think that's what's missing, because I'll have a parent come to me and who has a male dancer, and they're already experiencing it and they're shutting down as a parent. And they're like, this, I'm struggling with this. I'm like, you can struggle. You're a parent. You're allowed to, but you either struggle with your kid or you allow your kid to struggle and you help build them up, because it'll just self-deprecate, and then they'll find reasons to quit it and then not love it. You know what I mean? Not genuinely not even be able to appreciate it if they're not doing it anymore.
That makes a huge, huge difference. And, you shouldn't feel this way versus what can we do to help you feel a different way? It's so, so very important. And I always say this because, most of my male dancers, they start and they love it. And usually around 12, 13 is when they drop off or they decide they want to do something else. And a lot of times it's because they've been bullied out of dancing, not because they don't want to, not because it doesn't fit what they love anymore. They've been bullied out of it. And being able to instill that confidence and that support system and that foundation to not be able to be bullied out of it, that really does start at home and from the teacher, like being able to give them the vocabulary to say, oh, this is why I dance and I don't really care.
I think too with educators, especially if you're an older educator. I'm by no means old, but I am significantly older than most of my students, and then I am significantly older than a lot of the colleagues who teach, within the same aspect that I do. And we're still figuring out everyone's identity and how important it is to them, how sensitive they are to it. And so it's a learning process, but that has to be a space for them as well.
And a lot of it is just ignorance of people not knowing. My husband and I, we are neither one of our kids dance. We have a huge dance background. That's what we've done for 20, 30 years of our life. And well, my son had to stop dancing because he had to pick between soccer or dance. Like there was just nothing to do with him. Like on the days that he had soccer, he had to go to soccer. And we've been talking with him as he's getting more competitive about dance class and teaching elements of footwork to him that will help with soccer, because it would be such a benefit for these athletes to have some dance training, right? And it's so funny to see the parents, like we've brought up, like maybe me or my husband teaching a class on like a weekend, a very informal, like just to get them moving and in tune with their bodies a little more. And you can tell some of them have the reaction like, dance? Like they just have no idea. And then they'll learn that my husband and I both did that, dabbled in that world for a very long time, and we're just in it, and directors and choreographers and conventions. And it's like you can see their brains like, I can't really say anything about this because that's what these people did, but really, and we're just like, yeah, like let's do a class for your boys. And it really does come from a place of just, they've just never been exposed to that world, so they have a preconceived notion, and it's not like the greatest.
So very common, that's what's crazy to me. I don't find it necessarily scary because there is a like out of sight, out of mind aspect, but it's like, wow, you really are that far removed, and that also makes me go, oh man, the arts, getting like this. This is why you see it a little less, and then
Yeah, it's shrinking. And yeah, and there's some that are like, yeah, that'd be so fun, let's do it. And
and that statement, it's like it's a very clear, I won't allow my son.
What do you think the biggest issue at dance competitions and convention spaces? What's the biggest issue when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
I would say representation as a whole. It might be a blanket statement, but representation as a whole. I will take this conversation to my grave. It's just one of those things that like there's so many people who don't understand. It's exhausting, and I've decided that I will exhaust myself trying to get you to understand. especially if I care about you.
When you say representation, clarified, are you talking, seeing themselves in the faculties?
Everything from faculty to genres. There's like to conversations about the genres and the roots of them, and then and again in clientele as well. But I mean, starting at the faculty, it's so important. It really is. And again, there's probably some incredible, and I'll speak for my ethnicity. There's probably some incredible Black educators who don't know how to get into a convention or do not think they can because of the lack of resources prior. I never thought I'd be on a convention. It was never a thought in my head. So seeing a lot of panels now, and I'll be transparent, I'm 38 years old. It never affected me, but when I see a panel and there's like 30 people on there and there's one, Black or brown educator, it does something to me. It does not create anger, but I'm like, it makes me want to reach out and be like, I'd love to send my information to you, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to teach for that versus I just want to send that in so that there's more.
Interesting. So it also, as conversely, like as somebody who is in a leadership position and is an educator, it makes you look at companies and go, I don't know that I want to work for you because you don't value that, because it's sending you a message too.
It is. It's sending me a message, and whether that's an intentional or unintentional, what I think is missing is the lack of awareness, the inability to read the room. I focus so much on getting my kids to read the room that when an adult doesn't, I left with confusion. I'm like, you can't see this. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like the representation in faculty has evolved and gotten a little bit better? Because I will say, although I don't think we're nearly there yet. I think we have a lot of work to do. But I will say from growing up till now, what I'm seeing on convention faculty, I'm seeing a lot more diversity in the faculties. I'm seeing people like you see those changes being made slowly, maybe not as quick as we would like, but you are seeing more and more conventions having that diversity on their faculty. Do you agree with that?
I will say from growing up, I agree. From my 11th year on a convention circuit, I still have to search for it. Like I have to look for those faculties that have, and I'm like, oh. And not that I'm searching to be like, you don't have this, you don't have enough representation. It's just it's noticeable. I mean, I'm on a diverse faculty with genre and ethnicity, and
And I think that you mentioned a word earlier about intention, whether it's intentional or not. The point is, it has to be intentional for you to be diverse. Like you have to say, we are going to have a diverse faculty. We are going to have classes that represent a wide range of genres. And if you just kind of let it fall by, I tell my kids all the time when they're dancing, I'm like, look, the dance fairies are not going to come down and make X, Y, and Z happen to your body. The dance fairies are not going to come and hire a diverse staff for you. You have to be intentional about it and also cultivating talent. Like you have thousands of talented students coming through your doors on a regular basis who then become talented performers and or talented educators. If you maintain those contacts and you continue to nurture that talent, why do they not become staff for you?
Through assistant programs and, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like why is that not there? There should be no opportunity for you to say, "Well, I can't find diverse dance education." That's absolutely not true.
We had Aisha Upchurch on with us many, many times, and her voice is in my head right now, kind of to piggyback off what you said, Terrell, which is explaining the genres and teaching explaining the history, explaining the culture that goes into it. So they're not just learning a combo and walking away and going, "Oh, I learned this really cool combo. I learned African today," or "I learned about, how the culture behind this genre," whatever they were doing. And I don't see a ton of that happening in the convention space, probably because of the time restriction, but it would be incredible to have that being taught.
I mean, one fun fact goes a long way. It sparks the conversation.
Yeah. So you are one of the directors of Dupre Dance Convention. It's a cornerstone of the dance convention industry. Everybody knows what Dupre is at this point. and one, obviously, as we've talked about, that seems to value diversity and inclusion. Can you talk a little bit about what Dupre is doing differently in this regard to set an example for the industry as a whole? You've already kind of highlighted the faculty. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I will say one thing that stood out, which, again, I've been there for 11 years, and I've held this administrative position now for, I think this is my fourth season going into the administrative role. It's not a conversation that I have to have with my boss versus my boss identifying things naturally. So it's crazy because I'm like, no, I want you to know that what you're doing is a gift. It's natural for you. But if we are auditioning kids and there's not enough diversity up there, she will come into one of our ears and say there's not enough representation up there. When it comes to talent, you can look for so many things. And one thing that like our boss looks for, she's like, she'll be in there. She's like, did you see that person in the back? She was working so hard. No, I didn't see her. She wasn't dancing big enough for me. So maybe that's why my eye didn't go. And then I'm like, we're also realistically in a large convention setting.
So hard because you guys are in a sea of people and you're on a stage, or sometimes you get down and walk around, but you only see what you can see in that moment. And it is nice to have that person being your second pair of eyes.
And we have multiple. And so last season I was like, let me look for the people whose work ethic is standing out, like exceptional. You might not have all of the steps, but like a very, very advanced dancer who has all of the steps, their work ethic might still be a little bit complacent. When I see that person in the back, like, oh my gosh, you might hurt yourself, but I see this fire, this love, and you're not even making connection with me. You're not fighting for this scholarship. You're genuinely like, dancing like I did growing up. And so it's a little bit relatable when you take the focus off of like awarding a scholarship for X, Y, and Z and doing it from like let's scale back. Let's look at other aspects of talent. It doesn't just have to be the combo. It could be, a plethora of things. Everything from genre wise, because we offer, I mean, even world culture. We have a Bollywood teacher, and to me, like watching a young Indian student come up to our ballroom teacher and say her life was completely changed, and watching how that affected my colleague, I'm like, that's why we do this. So now that I clearly understand that, it makes our purpose so clear. We have a core faculty, so if we're switching out by maybe one faculty. So our values all align when it comes to really making sure every kid feels seen, included. I mean, and that's
Well, and because when those kids go home, they cherish and remember to them, you all are so iconic, and you are everything that they aspire to be. And so to take even just get a second of your